Hi everyone. In this video I will start to explain why bad things happen on earth if there is a loving God. This seems to be the number one question when it comes to God, and it seems to puzzle a lot of people. I think it will take a couple of videos, but we will start to discover if there is an acceptable explanation to this age-old question, so stick to the end. Alright, so why is this an important question? Remember how Jesus said the most important thing was to love the Lord your God with all your heart? Now, how can you love a God if you think that He's cruel? How can you love and trust a God if you fear that He might allow some cruel thing to happen to you or your loved ones? It doesn't even have to be your family. Just think about all the starving children of the world. Now, that alone is enough to question His love and care for humanity, isn't it? And most people don't know the answer to that. They might come up with different explanations that somehow makes this all sound better, but deep down in their heart, everybody knows that they are just not okay with that. I am not going to make excuses for God in this video, but I want to say something up front. God does not allow bad things to happen. Why are they happening then? The first thing we need to discuss is God's sovereignty. It seems like most people think sovereign means that you randomly decide to do whatever you want without any restraint. But it's not what sovereignty is. That's a misconception. The dictionary defines sovereignty as such: the state of being free from the control or power of another. That means there is nobody above you to tell you what to do, but it doesn't mean that you dictatorially choose to do this and that and the other according to your whims and desires, without any rhyme or reason. Usually when believers don't understand something that happened, they just say, well, God sovereignly chose to do this, one day we'll understand why. Yes, there is nobody telling God what to do, but it doesn't automatically mean that He's random and not steady, and that one day He chooses this, the next day the opposite. God's sovereignty is not an acceptable explanation for bad things happening on earth. Okay, so I'd like to start showing you now that God doesn't do things randomly and unreasonably. There is law and order behind everything He does. Let's look at a Bible verse from the Gospel of John. It says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." This is not just any word or words. There is a unique collection of words that contain and express God's likeness and character to the full. That's what it's talking about here. There's a lot to say about what's included in God's word, but let's look at one specific aspect. King David in the 119th Psalm describes God's word with a number of expressions. He calls it law, precept, statute, commandment, righteous rule, just to name a few. And again, somewhere else he says covenant. I think most of us understand what laws, commandments, rules, and covenants are. But let's look at these other two words here. Precept. An order issued by legally constituted authority to a subordinate official. Statute. A law enacted by the legislative branch of a government. A very important thing to notice here is that all of the above listed words are legal terms. And this is the core of what I wanted to bring across today. God operates on legal basis. He Himself is perfect order. His word is law. He cannot possibly act as a temperamental dictator. He does everything based on legalities, and I cannot stress this point enough. And concerning how God operates, the same language appears in the New Testament as well. It mentions the law of faith, the law of works, the law of the Spirit of life, and the law of sin and death. Why is this so important? Because if something is a law, it means that it's constant, it's not changing. Just like physical laws, like the law of gravity, for example, it's constant. The laws of physics are constant. That's why we can do precise calculations and predictions. And it's exactly the same in the spirit world. Spiritual laws are constant too. So whatever God says, it's law, it's constant, unchangeable, predictable. And what is the most important information here is that God abides by the law too. God said this in the 89th Psalm. I will not violate my covenant or alter the word that went forth from my lips. This is huge. Nobody likes or wants an unpredictable dictator to rule over them. This quality of God, that he is law-abiding, ensures that both he, his laws, and the world he set up remain predictable and controlled. That is a whole lot better than living in fear of uncertainty. In modern terms, it would be like living in a constitutional state versus dictatorship. We all want to live in a society where laws prevent excesses. So how does this all relate to our original question? If there is a loving God, why still do bad things happen on earth? Since I brought out the legal aspect of how God is running things, let's establish one more fact here. In our worldly societies, it's always very carefully observed how authority and legislative power is passed around. And it is just like it in the spirit world. I think it's very clear for everybody that God is almighty and has supreme power. That's our starting point. Let's see what he did with that. We can read in Genesis that after creating mankind, he proclaimed the following: "Let them have dominion over all the earth." I was curious to see the definition of dominion, and this is what it means in judicial language: supreme authority, sovereignty, absolute ownership. For me, this is phenomenal. For the sake of emphasis, I will put this in context now. God said, "Let mankind have supreme authority, sovereignty, and absolute ownership over all the earth." This is just amazing. In the book of Psalms, it says, "The heavens are the Lord's heavens, but the earth has he given to the children of men." It's so clearly stated that the earth was given over to mankind with supreme authority. All right, so what happened next? I think we all heard the story of Adam and Eve, but I will explain what was the ruling principle behind their actions. Mankind has decided to explore the full scope of their freshly received supreme authority. Simply put, that's it. God does not allow sin and suffering on earth. God allowed humanity to decide over that. That's what sovereignty, supreme authority, and absolute ownership mean. The Bible clearly states that, and I quote, "Sin came into the world through one man, and death through sin." Humanity got themselves under the law of sin and death. The Apostle Paul calls it like that in the book of Romans. In this world, people live under the law of sin and death. And again, please note the legal term. It's a law. And if it's a law, it has to be kept even by God. So if you're wondering why you can read such things in the Old Testament that God struck this person and that person, etc., it's because people had to be dealt with in respect of the law of sin and death. And just to get the full picture of what death is, let's find out who is the master of death. It plainly says in the book to the Hebrews that the one who has the power of death is the devil. Now this doesn't look good, does it? The earth is under the supreme authority of mankind, mankind is under the law of sin and death, and the devil is the master of death. So ultimately, who then is ruling the earthly realm? It's the devil. But let's get some confirmation on that from the Bible. We can read about it in the Gospels, how the devil tempted Jesus. One of the things that happened was this: "And the devil took him up and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time, and said to him, 'To you I will give all this authority and their glory, for it has been delivered to me, and I give it to whom I will.'" Did you get that? Authority over the kingdoms of the world belonged to the devil. And how did he get it? It was delivered to him. By whom? Adam, the first human. It's always best to get more verses from the Bible when it comes to an issue, and especially because this previous quote came from the devil, and he often lies, as we know. Let's see how Jesus calls the devil in the Gospel of John, the ruler of this world. Here's another one from the Apostle Paul, from the second letter to the Corinthians. He calls the devil the God of this world. The God of this world? Yes, you heard it right. I would like to emphasize it here again, that mankind in the meantime never lost their supreme authority over the earth. They've always had it. The nature, the make, the constitution of humanity got under the law of sin and death. So the devil, as the master of death, became God of this world indirectly through mankind. All right, this is it for now. In part 2 of this video, we will explore how God fixed this problem. And I would like to add that of course I didn't forget that God is almighty, and in the end He's Lord over all. Of course He cares for people and He helps and intervenes on our behalf. In part 2, we will find out how that comes about, so stay tuned. If you like this video, please consider subscribing, and for more interesting stuff, check out the links below. If you'd like to find out what an incredible position God has put mankind in and how this is available to you too, get my new book, The New Human Species. For availability, please check the description below. Be blessed, and bye for now.